How a single charter changed the city. It began with a document so unassuming that few outside the halls of power paid it any attention. A simple charter, written in measured language, sealed with official insignia. It looked like countless others issued across the kingdom. But hidden within its clauses was a shift so profound that London would feel its force for centuries. In granting one group a new kind of authority, the Crown unknowingly redrew the boundaries of the city's financial world. London at the time was a city straining against its own limits. Trade surged beyond what traditional institutions could manage. Merchants demanded new pathways for expansion. The Crown needed partners who could mobilize wealth faster than the state's aging mechanisms allowed. In this moment of pressure and opportunity, the Charter offered a solution, one that seemed pragmatic, even modest, yet its implications stretched far beyond its initial purpose. To understand why this mattered, we must return to a period when private enterprise and public authority were still learning how to coexist. England's merchants were ambitious, but their reach was constrained by fragmented rules, overlapping jurisdictions, and systems too slow for a world that was expanding with breathtaking speed. The Crown saw in them an asset, something to harness, something to formalize. The reveal began when the Charter granted a select group the right to operate not merely as traders, but as an institution, empowered to raise capital, manage risk, issue shares, and pursue ventures that no individual or family could hope to undertake alone. It was the beginning of a new model: collective enterprise with legal authority, independence from existing guilds, and the power to shape markets on a scale London had never seen. At first, the Charter seemed like a clever partnership, a tool to coordinate resources efficiently, a mechanism to empower England's global ambitions. But beneath this design lay a quiet transformation. The Charter blurred the lines between private ambition and public mission. It allowed an organization to act with the strength of the many, the legitimacy of the state, and the freedom of a merchant, all at once. London did not yet understand what it had been given. Not yet, but the first tremors of change could already be felt. Old institutions sensed a shifting tide. Rival merchants whispered of unfair advantage. Politicians questioned whether the Crown had granted too much power in a single stroke. The city was moving toward a conflict that would test not only the Charter's limits, but the limits of authority itself. The Charter's influence spread faster than anyone expected. What seemed at first a narrow grant of privilege soon revealed itself as a framework capable of reshaping entire markets. The newly empowered organization moved with a kind of coordinated strength London had never witnessed, raising capital in amounts that dwarfed individual merchants, launching ventures too vast for any private house, and establishing offices that operated with almost governmental authority. The first signs of tension emerged quietly. Guilds that had dominated trade for generations found themselves eclipsed by a single entity whose reach extended far beyond their traditional jurisdictions. Merchants complained that competition felt uneven, that they were no longer contending with peers, but with a collective giant capable of absorbing risk on a scale they could not match. Some argued the Charter violated the spirit of open markets. Others insisted it represented the future. As the organization expanded, it forged alliances that unsettled the city. Financiers flocked to invest in its ventures, drawn by the stability that collective power offered. Smaller firms, fearing exclusion, sought contracts that bound them to the chartered enterprise. The concentration of influence grew denser with each passing year. London's coffers swelled with the profits generated by distant voyages and lucrative monopolies. But beneath this prosperity lay a growing unease. The balance of power was shifting. Conflict sharpened as the organization gained the ability to issue shares, tiny pieces of ownership that allowed thousands of investors to participate in ventures once reserved for the wealthy. It was a revolutionary idea, one that drew crowds to exchange houses and turned ordinary citizens into stakeholders in global trade. But shared risk brought shared expectations, and soon the organization found itself accountable not just to the Crown, but to a restless, expanding body of investors whose fortunes now rose and fell with every decision it made. Meanwhile, those outside the system felt increasingly marginalized. Independent traders complained of restricted access to foreign markets. Rivals bristled at the organization's growing political influence. Even foreign powers took notice, wary of competing not against a country, but against a chartered corporation with near-sovereign reach. The Crown defended the arrangement, praising its efficiency and profit, but critics warned that authority was slipping into private hands, wrapped in the legitimacy of a royal seal. The pressure intensified when the organization sought new powers, expanded jurisdiction, broader trade rights, stronger enforcement mechanisms. Supporters claimed these requests were necessary to protect England's interests abroad. Opponents argued that such authority verged on governmental. Debates erupted in Parliament. Protests stirred in the city. What had started as cooperation was transforming into a contest over the very nature of power. The cracks widened further when a series of costly ventures pushed the organization's finances into precarious territory. Investors panicked. Rivals pounced. Officials questioned whether the entity they had in power was now too large to control, too interconnected to fail, and too influential to restrain. London could feel the tension tightening, strand by strand. The Charter had opened the door to innovation, scale, and ambition, but also to imbalance and confrontation. The city now stood on the edge of a conflict that would challenge not only the Charter's authority, but the fragile equilibrium between private enterprise and the state itself. The conflict over the Charter grew sharper as London began to feel the weight of its unintended consequences. The organization created by that single document now operated with scale and confidence that dwarfed its earliest ambitions. It commanded fleets, negotiated with foreign rulers, issued dividends to thousands of investors, and shaped markets across continents. With every success, its influence deepened. With every misstep, the city trembled. The first major rupture appeared when the organization's aggressive expansion collided with the interests of independent traders. Routes once open to all merchants were now guarded by exclusivity. Licenses were denied. Goods were confiscated. Courts ruled in favor of charter privilege, leaving smaller traders furious and powerless. What had been billed as a national instrument for prosperity increasingly resembled a monopolistic force bending the world to its will. Tensions rose further when its leaders began to act not only as merchants, but as policymakers. They lobbied Parliament for favorable laws. They influenced diplomatic appointments. They shaped military strategies abroad to protect their investments. Critics inside the city whispered the unsettling truth. The organization was no longer serving the state. It was steering it. As resentment grew, rival factions formed. Some merchants united to challenge the Charter's reach, demanding reforms that would restore open competition. Parliamentarians debated whether a corporation should wield such authority. Even within the chartered organization, divisions emerged between cautious officials and ambitious directors who believed expansion was the only path forward. With every dispute, the pressure intensified. The conflict came into full view when a disastrous overseas campaign, launched in pursuit of profit rather than national interest, ended in catastrophic losses. Ships destroyed, fortunes wiped out, investors furious. The news struck London with the force of a storm. Crowds gathered outside the organization's headquarters. Shares plummeted. Members of Parliament demanded inquiries. The Crown, embarrassed by an enterprise acting in its name, sought explanations more urgently than ever. The organization's leadership attempted to contain the fallout, but their influence, once quietly omnipresent, now worked against them. Every rumor of mismanagement felt credible. Every accusation, plausible. The old guard argued that the Crown had granted too much independence. Reformers insisted that only strict oversight could restore order. Investors, desperate for reassurance, called for leadership changes. Amid this turmoil, a deeper truth emerged. The Charter had given birth to something the old world was not prepared to govern, a hybrid of corporation and state. A creature driven by profit, yet legitimized by royal authority. Neither fully public nor fully private, neither accountable nor restrained. Its power was its strength and its undoing. The crisis escalated when a group of influential investors threatened a coordinated withdrawal unless sweeping reforms were enacted. Their ultimatum exposed the fragility of a system built on concentrated risk. If they acted, the organization could collapse. If they didn't, its unrestrained influence could continue destabilizing the city and the kingdom alike. London now stood at crossroads. The Charter had promised prosperity but delivered imbalance. It had empowered ambition but eroded boundaries. The city braced for a moment when the Crown, Parliament, and the organization itself would collide, forced to confront the question no one had dared speak aloud. Had a single charter created a partner of the state, or a rival to it? The moment of reckoning arrived when the Crown, pressured by Parliament and shaken by public outrage, demanded a full inquiry into the organization's actions. Summoned before officials, its directors faced questions sharper than any blade. Why had they acted beyond their mandate? Why had they pursued ventures that endangered both national security and economic stability? Why had they treated a royal charter as a license for unchecked authority? The chamber swelled with tension. Directors defended themselves with practiced precision, insisting their expansion protected England's interest abroad and enriched the kingdom at home. But the evidence told another story, one of overreach, miscalculation, and decisions driven more by profit than responsibility. Their explanations, once persuasive, now rang hollow in the face of mounting losses and swelling public anger. As the inquiry unfolded, the Crown proposed sweeping reforms. It demanded stricter oversight, clearer boundaries, and new rules governing the organization's powers. Parliament pushed even further, calling for limitations on monopolistic privileges and increased transparency for investors and government alike. The organization resisted fiercely, claiming interference would cripple its ability to compete across the globe. Yet resistance only deepened suspicion. The conflict reached its climax when a decisive vote in Parliament stripped the organization of several key powers, exclusive rights it had relied upon for decades. Its leaders, stunned, realized that the authority granted by a single charter could just as swiftly be reshaped by political will. Markets reacted instantly. Share prices plunged. Investors panicked. The once mighty institution, which had acted like a sovereign force, now felt the full weight of state oversight bearing down upon it. In the aftermath, restructuring began. Leadership changed hands. Internal controls were rewritten. The Crown tightened its grip, establishing new systems to ensure no private institution could again wield such unrestrained influence. Some ventures continued, but under watchful eyes. Others were abandoned entirely. The organization endured, but transformed, humbled, and permanently altered. London emerged from the crisis wiser and more deliberate. The city had learned that granting power without boundaries invited imbalance, and that innovation required oversight as much as freedom. The charter, once hailed as a stroke of brilliance, had revealed both the promise and peril of mixing public authority with private ambition. The resolution carried a truth that would echo across centuries. No institution, no matter how profitable or influential, stands above accountability. The state and the market must move in tandem, each checking the other's success, each ensuring stability where ambition alone might lead to collapse. From the clash of charter and crown, modern corporate governance began to take shape, born not from theory, but from crisis. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.